The golden light of dusk bathed the streets of Crestwood, casting long shadows across its tidy sidewalks and manicured lawns. A gentle breeze whispered through the trees, carrying the faint scent of freshly cut grass. Officer Carter's patrol car moved slowly through the suburban neighborhood, its tires crunching softly against the asphalt. Carter adjusted his rearview mirror, his sharp eyes scanning the peaceful surroundings out of habit rather than necessity. For years, Carter had been a pillar of the community, the kind of officer who was both respected and feared. His stern demeanor, combined with an unyielding commitment to the law, had earned him a reputation for being tough but fair. But beneath the surface of his hardened exterior was a man weighed down by solitude. His modest apartment, devoid of family or personal touches, echoed with silence when he returned each night. As his patrol car passed the local park, his gaze caught on a solitary figure sitting on a swing. The sight was unusual. A young girl, no more than 8 or 9, was swinging slowly, her legs barely moving to keep the swing in motion. Her dark curls framed her face, which was turned downward, and her shoulders slumped as if carrying a weight far too heavy for a child. Carter slowed the car instinctively but hesitated. Children often played late in Crestwood, especially in the summer. Perhaps her parents were nearby, watching from a bench or a car. He shook his head, dismissing his concern, and continued down the road. An hour later, darkness enveloped the town, and the temperature had dropped noticeably. The streets were quieter now, with only the occasional sound of a car in the distance or the rustle of leaves. Carter's patrol was nearly complete, but something gnawed at him. The image of the girl on the swing lingered in his mind. A shadow he couldn't shake, guided by an unspoken instinct. He turned his car back toward the park. As his headlights swept across the playground, his chest tightened. The swing set was now empty, but beneath the jungle gym, he noticed a small, curled-up figure. He parked the car, his hand instinctively moving to his flashlight as he stepped out. Carter approached cautiously, his boots crunching softly on the gravel. The figure was lying on a piece of cardboard, wrapped in a tattered jacket far too thin for the chilly night. As he drew closer, he saw the gentle rise and fall of the girl's chest. She was asleep. Her cheeks were streaked with dried tears, and her small hands were clenched tightly, as if trying to hold onto something invisible. "Hey there," Carter said softly, crouching down to her level. He gently touched her shoulder. "Wake up, sweetheart." The girl stirred, her dark eyes fluttering open. She recoiled slightly at the sight of a stranger, her gaze darting around in fear. "It's okay," Carter reassured her, holding up his hands. "I'm Officer Carter. I'm here to help. What's your name?" "Maya," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Maya," Carter repeated, his voice kind. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The girl sat up slowly, clutching her jacket tightly. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I'm waiting for my mom. She told me to stay here, that she'd come back." "How long have you been waiting?" Carter asked, already dreading the answer. Maya hesitated, her lower lip quivering. 4 days. Carter's breath caught in his throat. 4 days. This little girl had been left to fend for herself in a public park for nearly a week. He struggled to keep his face neutral, not wanting to frighten her further. "Where is your mom, Maya?" he asked gently. "She went to find a job," Maya said, her eyes filling with tears. "She said she'd come back as soon as she could. She told me to wait here." Carter closed his eyes briefly, overwhelmed by a mix of anger and sorrow. He didn't know this woman's circumstances, but leaving a child like this was unimaginable. "Have you been sleeping here the whole time?" he asked. Maya nodded, pointing to a nearby slide. "Under there when it rained. On the bench when it didn't." The matter-of-fact way she said it broke Carter's heart. No child should have to endure this. "Maya," he said, keeping his tone steady, "it's not safe for you to stay here. I need to take you somewhere warm and safe." "Okay," she hesitated, her small hands gripping the edges of her jacket. "But, what if my mom comes back? She won't find me if I leave." Carter knelt down so their eyes were level. "I promise I'll help you find your mom. But right now, you need to be safe. Will you trust me?" After a long pause, Maya nodded, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. Carter helped Maya into the back seat of his patrol car, carefully wrapping a spare blanket around her shoulders. As they drove to the station, he glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She looked so small, so fragile, sitting there with her knees pulled up to her chest. At the station, Carter led Maya to his desk. He retrieved a fresh blanket from the supply closet and wrapped it around her before handing her a cup of hot cocoa from the break room. "Drink this," he said gently. "It'll help you feel warmer." Maya held the cup with both hands. Sipping slowly, the warmth seemed to bring a hint of color back to her pale cheeks. Carter sat down across from her, his mind racing. He needed to make calls, to child services, to local shelters, but first, he wanted to learn more about Maya. "Do you remember where you and your mom lived before coming here?" he asked. "We didn't have a house," Maya said quietly. "We stayed in our car. But then it broke. That's when Mom said we had to come to the park." Carter felt a lump in his throat. The pieces were starting to come together, and the picture they painted was devastating. Over the next few days, Carter became deeply involved in Maya's case. He filed reports, contacted shelters, and searched tirelessly for any trace of her mother. Meanwhile, Maya stayed at the station, her presence a constant reminder of the resilience and innocence of children even in the harshest circumstances. At first, Maya was quiet and withdrawn, but as Carter spent time with her, she began to open up. She told him about her favorite books, her dream of becoming a dancer, and the silly jokes her mom used to tell to make her laugh. Her laughter, when it finally came, was like a ray of sunshine piercing through Carter's usually grim world. For Carter, Maya wasn't just a case file or a responsibility. She was a wake-up call, a reminder of the humanity he had long suppressed in the name of professionalism. Each interaction with her chipped away at the walls he had built around himself. When Carter finally located Maya's mother, it was a bittersweet reunion. Her mother had been desperate, struggling to find work and provide for her daughter, while Carter ensured they were reunited. He didn't stop there. He connected them with resources to help them rebuild their lives, ensuring they wouldn't have to face such hardships again. In the weeks and months that followed, Carter stayed in touch with Maya and her mother. Their bond, forged in the most challenging of circumstances, became a source of strength for all three of them.